Welcome to Soul of Travel. I am so excited today to be welcoming Carolyn Ray of JourneyWoman to the podcast. JourneyWoman is a community that I've been following for almost my whole travel career. I remember hearing it kind of popping in and out, and it always being this space that I was super curious about. And we finally connected this year. And so I'm just really excited to bring you in to talk about this community, which I think is so incredible on the podcast today. So welcome, Carolyn.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Christine.
Thank
Anytime we can talk about women and the power of women, I am up for it.
Yes, me too. So I think we're going to start on the right page with that. Well, just as we get started, I would love for you to briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about JourneyWoman, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So I'm the CEO and editor of JourneyWoman, which is a currently 28-year-old solo travel publication that was started in 1994 by Evelyn Hannon. And Evelyn was 78 when she passed away. And I was very fortunate to be invited by her and her family to carry on her legacy with JourneyWoman, which is, widely regarded as kind of the first solo travel publication for women, and certainly one of the oldest, and I think one of the most influential solo travel publications in the world. We have a very large mailing list, and have been, I think, over the pandemic, building more of the community through online channels.
Yeah, thank you. I'm preparing to travel, and I was trying to think about packing, and it feels like it's been so long since I've traveled that I'm like, I don't know if I remember how to do this. So I went to the website and I found blogs and posts and things and recommendations. And so I've already used it in a very practical way just in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
So I
great.
appreciate it.
That's
Well, to begin our conversation, what I would really love to talk about is the premise of this season of the podcast is understanding the shifts and changes that the women I'm speaking to are working to create in the world. And I think this really comes from our personal mission, which ends up being expressed in our careers. And I was reading a great book by Dr. Tara Trent, and she talks about our great hunger, which is like this problem that we're trying to solve in the world, or this thing that we can't kind of walk away from. It just follows us. And so I would love to ask you, Carolyn, like, what is the change that you see yourself trying to create in the world?
I think one of the things that I really think a lot about when you talk about change in the world is, and it's something that seems to happen more in Western cultures than in other parts of the world, is the respect we have for older people, and in particular older women.
Mhm.
And when you travel as much as I do to different places around the world, you really see how revered older women are in Mexico, for example, where I spent the last 4 months, or other places. And it feels to me sometimes like we've lost that. And so part of what gets me excited is being advocates for women over 50, who I think are, the women in our group or in our community are so brave and so courageous, and they're the ones who led the way for the rest of us. And I really want to try and recognize that in everything that I do at JourneyWoman, be it editorial or events or our advisory council or community calls or whatever we're doing. I always want to advocate for women, of a certain age, because I'm a Gen Xer, and I feel sometimes like the Gen Xers are ignored. And I want to advocate for, women in general too, because we've still got a lot of work to do around the world to create more gender equality for all women. And as a mother, I want to be a good role model for my daughter, who I think will be going out into the world and creating all kinds of meaningful change. So
Yeah. I know that that's one thing that we really connected on initially is this honoring and kind of creating a space where the wisdom of women is revered and sacred again. Like you said, culturally, that's whoa.
Ah, sorry. The light's very excited to be here. Have you ever had this happen
I
where,
haven't. This will be a
my
first.
goodness, what is wrong with this light? This is where things go off the rails. Sorry, Christine.
That's okay.
Let's see if it comes back on.
Luckily for the power of editing, those of us joining us live just get to see the real life, which is important. And
Okay, we're back.
okay, so I think what we have talked about in the past is the importance of creating a space and changing the conversation around that wisdom that women keep. And I think it has, like you mentioned, been really lost in our culture. And when you travel, you do see that. And I think that's one of those things when I traveled as well that I noticed. And I thought, just the way women gather in general is very different, that there's a very different energy. And, whether it's a society where women are still oppressed or not, it's the way women gather is very different. And the way they treat each other, I think, is very different. And then also this idea that, like, reaching old age is something to aspire to. It's not where in our culture where you immediately start in your 20s like trying to combat your wrinkles and your gray hair and like exercise, like all these things. We're just fighting aging, where we never get to this point until I think much later in our culture where we're like, oh wait, wisdom and age are amazing things. And so I think creating community where we can talk about that and shift that perspective is so important. And I know for me, traveling as a younger traveler, when I had the opportunity to travel with people that were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, my experiences were so enriched by hearing the stories of their lives and seeing it through the lens of their life experiences, that I feel like we are really missing something by not celebrating that.
Yeah. It's funny. We did an article last year. It's called What Women 65 and Older Know That You Don't. And I'm just in the process of updating that article now with some new input and feedback. But there's a certain power in not giving a damn anymore. And you reach this point in your life, and when I turned 50 a few years ago, I kind of felt that way, like I had it with all of society's rules and all the things I was supposed to be doing, and the path that we go down. And I went down that path. I had the workaholic job, I got the house, I had the toys, I had the possessions. And you reach a certain point in your life and you go, okay, hang on, this is not working for me anymore. And I think what these older women show us is you don't have to always conform to society's rules. You can make your own rules, and you've got to do what's right for you. And sometimes you don't have the confidence to do that until later in life. But having good role models is such an important part of having, the strength and confidence to say, I am not going to conform anymore. I'm going to do, what I feel in my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yes, like you said, having people model that for you. And I think, again, another kind of symptom of our culture is this being so separate from one another. So like I mentioned, when you travel and you see the way women gather, you do have people that you're constantly around, that you're looking up to, that are showing you the way. And, we, especially in that mode that you were talking about, where you're going through the motions of, completing college and getting the right job and the right partner and the right house and all these things, you realize that all of a sudden, and I feel like this is a moment a lot of women reach, and then they find JourneyWoman, they find Lotus Sojourns, is like you are buried head down in living this life, and then you like look up and you go,
yeah,
what have I done? Like you said, what have I created? Who am I? Why have I done this? And then we start seeking these women, I think, to show us how we can unravel all of that and then become the version of ourselves that we get to be, moving forward.
Yeah, and I love what you said about connecting with women because, even I was in Mexico in May, and I went out to some of the villages, and I spent the day with a woman that was teaching a cooking class, and she spoke Spanish. My Spanish is not great, but we still connected because our stories are so similar. Single mothers and going through abusive, experiences, and all this stuff that we have and we share in common as women. This is the stuff that really connects us, and it's incredible that you can have such a meaningful experience with somebody who has such a different life than you. But the only way to have those experiences is to get out and travel and meet women like this and look for those incredible women that are in these small villages that are so much like us in every way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those experiences for me are always what I take home. Like, everybody kind of, or not everybody, people often set out to travel with this idea of things they want to see and, activities that they want to check off a list or things that sound exciting to them. And then at the end of the day, it's these experiences of connection that really stay with us long term. And then I think especially powerful to me are the ones where you have a moment like that where you think, I don't know how we'll connect because our lives are so different, our circumstances are so different. And then you find yourself like giggling about how your teenager doesn't listen to you, or how, your husband's a workaholic, and, whatever that looks like. But then all of a sudden you see each other and it just changes how you feel about people
Yeah.
across the board. Like it really is so connecting.
It's like this moment where it's like, I see you, you see me, and we are the same,
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
matter what country you're in. I had that experience in Kenya too. I traveled there with my daughter in 2018, and I took her to Kenya thinking it was going to change her and change her perspective, and as she was going into university, and I had all these kind of expectations for her, and it ended up changing me more than her, I think, because that was the moment that I came back and I realized that the path I was on to acquire more possessions and things like that, was not a path I needed to be on anymore. And that's when I came home and downsized and auctioned off my house and did all those things just to travel. Because I thought, oh my gosh, if I can have that same feeling of joy without the physical manifestations that I, was socially brought up with,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it just, when you simplify your mindset and simplify your life in that way, it just makes a huge difference, because you realize all I really need is the people. And yeah, I just need people. I don't need things anymore.
Yeah, yes, I agree so much. I think that would be a great time to talk about the importance of community. So, as you mentioned, JourneyWoman, that is really what it has evolved to, especially in the last 2 years. You've been able to focus on that, I think, like many of us have, because in the absence of being able to connect with people like immediately close to us, we've connected with people all around the world through Zoom, like we're doing, and it has opened so many doors. And I think we also became so much more aware of how much we needed each other when we couldn't have each other. What has community meant to you in terms of the JourneyWoman community, but what has it also meant to you as a woman and as someone who has taken over the task of being kind of the head of this community?
Yeah. Well, in terms of JourneyWoman, I have to admit, when I was invited to take over this website, I thought, oh, it's a website and I'll be able to travel and write about travel. That's how simplistic my mindset was. When Erica M and I announced this shift, and that Evelyn had passed away and that I was taking over, I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, phone calls, messages. I mean, for days and days and days, I was responding to every single one of them, and about how much Evelyn meant to them and how much JourneyWoman meant to them. And I realized that this was not just a website. And I hadn't fully appreciated that until that moment. Um, and so what community has meant is the women that have created JourneyWoman, because it is a co-created website. It's based on firsthand feedback from women. It's based on their tips. It's based on this openness and sharing and generosity that I don't think exists anywhere else. It's just amazing. So they are not just readers or members. In fact, we don't charge or anything like that to be part of the JourneyWoman community. There's this exchange of, we're sharing our wisdom with each other all the time. And that's a really, really special thing. And until I stepped into these shoes that were left for me, Evelyn's red boots, I had no idea what this was. And I was quite unprepared for it. And all the feedback and all the ideas. But you know what? You just gotta like step into that and embrace it. And in the first little while, I was quite when I got all kinds of feedback of things I was doing wrong or things they didn't like, and I realized over time that it was because they cared so much about JourneyWoman. And I feel so lucky that I've had this opportunity for me, because I'm very introverted. I really don't, I don't see myself as being out in the spotlight. I even doing this interview with you, it's something I've had to get used to over the last 3 years, even though I had leadership positions in the past. This is different. This is like my heart. This business is my heart. I'm going to cry.
Thank you. I can truly relate to it, because there's something that when you create a space for women and they are so fully engaged and there for one another, to be able to sit in that space feels like such a treasure. And when you realize, because much like you, I'm an introvert and also deeply love.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. We're doing this thing. It is so sacred. It's so sacred. And when it comes from, like, I so love when I see people connect and when I see people share their energy and their love for one another with one another. It's magic every single time. Every single time I see someone connect and witness one another and light up and support one another, I just think like something has shifted in this world, and there was a small miracle and I got to be present to it. And it's very, very personal. And so I think it's so interesting when women get to step into a role like this. We aren't taught how to be like emotional and be leaders. We've taught to be leaders and like drop all emotion. And so it's a very interesting space. And I imagine for you that navigating that, much like, we just experienced, it's impossible to separate those things, and then to learn how to have them in the same space has been a journey.
I even got JourneyWoman tattooed on me last year, because I so strongly feel that this was, was an unexpected path for me. I was doing consulting for 25 years. I was going to travel the world. I never expected that something like this would happen to me. And there's all these, synchronicities that sometimes line up. And at the end of the day, what I've learned is I just have to trust my intuition that this is where I am supposed to be. And I am learning so much about myself and about women. And, and it's funny to say this, but, at a certain point in my career, I was like, I think I've learned everything I can learn in consulting and branding and marketing. This is kind of what I did before this. And maybe there was like this moment when I went, I think I'm done learning. And the universe said, oh, no. We are going to throw you back into something that you're completely unprepared for, but I'm not unprepared. And we're going to give you a new challenge to face. So that's what the last 3 years has been for me. Is it's just been it's a tremendous challenge, but it has never felt like work. I love it. Like my friends and family will tell you, I could work, I could do JourneyWoman stuff 24 hours a day, and often do, because it just is my passion and my heart and my love, and such an honor to represent these women, and their stories and share them. I mean, it's just the honor of my life.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I just think it's so amazing for me. Like, I didn't think that was something possible. And so then to meet other people that have that same role or that same presence to community and to space, spaces of people, it's so amazing. Like, I think I deeply wanted it. There is some part of me always who believed in the interconnectedness of people. And I think that's what led me to travel, because I think it's something that shows us that, but then landed eventually, like, I found myself creating communities of women everywhere I went, but I didn't realize I was doing it. And I remember being in some sort of workshop or something, and someone was like, well, you just create community of women. And I'm like, no, I'm so shy. I don't do that. What are you talking about? And they're like, you started this group for breastfeeding moms when you were doing that. You started this group for momtrepreneurs when you were doing that. You started a group for this. And like, I was like, oh, I have left like communities of women in my wake as I've moved through life and as I've moved around the United States. And I just didn't really realize that that's what I needed or wanted. And then, like, Soul of Travel has been that too. When I like create a graphic with the pictures of all of the women who have spent time with me, like you're doing today, I'm so emotional that I cannot believe all of these people have like just come to this space and shared so fully of themselves. And it's just this, I can't really find words for it, but it's just something so needed. And I think people are so drawn to it. And I think that's where communities like JourneyWoman are thriving, because we're just aching for that kind of
Yeah.
connection.
And, if we wait for someone else to do the things that we dream of, and we say, I wish somebody would start a group or start on such and such, the question is, why not you?
Right.
Like, why not me?
Mhm.
Why not?
Yeah.
So I would encourage anyone who has an interest to get out there and try it. The worst you can do is fail, but
Right.
chances are you won't, because somebody's wondering the same thing as you about how can somebody represent this idea and bring people together. And as you've said several times, I think we are hungry for connection, and even more now, because now we value it and we appreciate it.
Mhm.
And maybe before the pandemic, we took it for granted, that we could do whatever we wanted when we wanted. And now we know how important it is not to just have the connection through our words and our discussions online, but also like just to hug somebody now, or just to like touch somebody. I remember the first time I touched somebody after spending like a year and a half without seeing anybody, like I will never take that for granted again. Never.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm getting ready to go to my first industry event since, I mean, it feels like in forever. And I'm so excited and I'm so nervous. I'm like, am I going to remember how to be by all these people and how to talk to them and how to engage? And also I'm like, I imagine just so much hugging, because we've
Yeah.
all been missing that. And it's also a very unique space, I think, in the tourism industry. The way people are colleagues with one another is so different. I often have a hard time introducing people. I'm like, this is my colleague, friend, mentor, person I love, amazing human. I'm like, I don't know how to even introduce people, because of the way we interact with people so differently. But I'm just so excited for human interaction again.
Well, make those hugs count, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
It might get
a quick
awkward.
hug. It's got to be like you got to hang on, and
Yeah, some awkward hugging is
some
about
awkward
to
hugging for
happen.
sure.
Well, when you're talking about this community, and you mentioned that it originally was focused on solo women travel, Why do you think that was so important? And what is different about a community of women traveling in that way versus maybe a community of other travelers?
Well, when Evelyn started JourneyWoman in 1994, it was because she had had her own experiences of not being able to find information by women for women. At the time, a lot of the editorial was being written by men, and so she became this. She was one of those women that said, "Why not me? Why can't I write about this?" And so she took that first step and started writing, and in a newsletter format, actually, first a printed newsletter. But um, I think we still have the same challenge we had then, and we still have to represent the voices of women, um, and things like safety are still issues they've broadened. So, even though JourneyWoman might have started talking about physical safety, we're now talking about online safety. We're talking about human trafficking. We're talking about all kinds of new things that are an extension of that same idea. So it's still highly, highly relevant for us to talk about that. And the other thing is that women have become the world's most influential travelers and make most travel decisions. So we have a role to play, and we can step into that role, and we can make a difference in the future of travel, whether it's through our own decisions, whether it's being more intentional when we travel, where we spend our money. We have power that we may not even realize is really important. And also, I think, and this is what I get excited about, is I think we can make it better, and we can make solo travel better for women and safer for women. So that's what gets me excited, is thinking about, okay, what's next and what's the future, and being a bit disruptive and creating some change, in the places where change is needed.
Yeah. And when you have that many women together sharing their stories and sharing their insights, like that's when we can really impact that change. And when one person, or maybe several people, have an awareness and then put words to it, and then we can start to address it, it's so amazing how quickly things can change versus, again, and like operating independently and trying to solve all the things on our own. We can't do that. And I just think it's amazing to see what that collective can create.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're about to launch a global study on solo travel, and I can't wait to hear how women are feeling about travel, and who they trust, and where we need to step in, and ageism, and all the things that we're talking about here, because I think that it's kind of never ending, but it's important. And if nothing else, that's what I want my legacy to be about, is how I am helping empower women, and also, as I said earlier, being a role model for my daughter and other young women who I think are going to come out and kick some ass. They've been kind of watching us Generation Xers and you, and getting out there and looking at the world with a different perspective. I think it's fantastic. There's so much that needs to be done. We need everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that is incredible is you see now women finding their voice and expressing it and having the means to express it. I mean, you can go and listen to hundreds of podcasts right now talking about these things where we didn't have access to those conversations. And then that trajectory, like you said, for our daughters. I mean, I have 3 daughters. They're young, but they are like totally sword wielding, like they are out here to make a difference. If they hear of injustice, they cannot stand for it. They don't understand inequity. It won't be tolerated. I don't think, whereas maybe we had that rebellion younger in our lives and we saw it and we were like, that's not going to happen. And then we went ahead and like fell into the path anyway. I don't really see them doing that. I don't see them kind of just going blindly into some sort of cultural norm. I think they will continue to defy it. And that is where we're also going to see the change, and they have this generation to look towards now. And And I think they are looking towards the women ahead of them for those
Yeah. It's
experiences.
funny, like my first job when I was 25 or whatever, we were not allowed to wear pants or open-toed shoes. We had to wear pantyhose to work, you know?
Mhm.
And so I'm the one who wrote the memo to the CEO and gathered all the women and said, this has to change, and we refuse, and we don't want to wear pantyhose anymore. And I look back, that's, 30 years ago or whatever, but it just shows you, like, you can change things. You
Mhm.
can, like, even if it's the most simple thing like that, it just takes one voice sometimes to change something. So, and as you say, the more of us that are together, the better it is.
Mhm. That's such a powerful reflection, because I think sometimes we don't notice change that has happened over the course of our lifetime. But I also very much remember, oh, the dreadful like woman suit and pantyhose and dress shoes. And you're like, why on earth? Like, no men look as uncomfortable in the office as women do in the office. It's just
I mean, I don't
really,
own a suit anymore. I haven't had one for years. Pantyhose, nope, no, thank
yeah.
you.
Right. And we're still very professional. So I think,
Yes.
yes, it's just a small change, but I mean, it's kind of funny to think about it now. When you are talking with women who are traveling, I think what I see a lot, especially for women who are 50 and older that are traveling, and kind of you mentioned like this, you reach this point where like no one else's opinion of me actually matters. And many of the things I've been chasing don't matter. And they really then start to be looking at who they are and bringing that into their professional career, into their travel life. What do you see out of this community in terms of honoring themselves and bringing that forward and kind of encouraging each other to do that as well?
Well, I see this every day. We have a private Facebook group where, a lot of women are coming into it. Um, and of course, the first step is just introducing yourselves and sometimes being a little vulnerable, and saying, I'm 50. I have never traveled by myself. I'm terrified. Um, you know, in fact, I can tell you another story, which is about a friend of mine, who is exactly that. And her mother doesn't want her to travel because her mother is afraid for her. And I said to her, where are the places that you want to go? Well, she wants to go to, like, her list was off. It was like Burma and India, like. And I said, holy cow, like, this isn't just about like going to Mexico. This is like, you want to get out and see the world and have different experiences. So I think what I see in our community, is women that it's not an ego thing. It's a you can do it. You can do it. And even if you just take one small step forward, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be just a little thing, but just do something to start walking down that path. And that's very often what I see is okay, I've chosen a place, or okay, I've taken a train by myself, or I've had dinner by myself, or I went and stayed in a hotel by myself in my own town, like just something to give you a little boost of confidence. And then you do all these things and they add up, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I love about our community is that I have never seen anyone be negative ever. And it's just constant like encouragement, um and if you need me, I'm here. I can't tell you how many friendships have developed, whether it's through our community calls or book clubs or whatever we're doing, and then I see people getting together in real life and posting their photo, and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I dreamed would happen. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that it is like you said, or like I said earlier, like witnessing that magic. It's just such a special thing to like see it move from a virtual world into the real world, and then just knowing that vision that we have is true, and that it's really impacting people, which is what's more important anyway. Is like we just want those connections for other people as much as we want them for ourselves.
Because this isn't just about travel, right? There's a bigger story here, which is about who's the person you are meant to be in your life.
Mhm.
And I think travel is one way that you can get there because it teaches you all the things you need to know who you are, to know what your values are, to know what you're capable of. So it's not just about going out and traveling. This is about discovering yourself, and uh, and that's what I think that this all of this is about. In solo travel, in particular, when you go out into the world on your own by yourself, it is scary, and there's no man to, you know, do something for you. You are on your own, and you have to know how to be independent and courageous and not be afraid to walk into that restaurant and get a table by yourself, or whatever the, situation may be. So I think, coming back from when you're traveling as a solo traveler, and you kind of re-enter your life, if you will, you're going to be a changed person. There's something that's going to be different about you because you have confidence maybe that you didn't have before, or you have a perspective from something you've witnessed on your travels, or you've made a connection that is going to change your life and lead you in a different path. It isn't just about travel. This is about your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I wish I could put like a big exclamation point out into the universe for that. I mean, I think that's really for me, again, like travel is just this expression or this path that helps us to get to all these different places. So I totally agree with you. And the solo travel, whether it's like you said, whether you're kind of beginning this self-discovery and you're staying at a hotel across town, or you are just taking yourself to the movies so that you can get comfortable making those decisions and being in your own space, and then you start doing these other things. I mean, I'm even preparing to travel for the first time by myself in a long time, and I feel some of those doubts creeping again. Like, are you sure you can do this? Are you sure you're going to be able to figure out the train schedule? And I'm like, okay, you've gone to the Amazon jungle. I am very sure that you're going to be able to figure out the train schedule in Switzerland, but like my brain needs to be wired back into that way again because I haven't done it in so long. And because I've like witnessed that circle, I can't wait to get home to just be like, okay, we did all the things that we didn't think we could do. And we're great because we did them.
Yeah. And I think the new, if I had to say like a new trait, just from my recent travel experiences is because things are so messed up right now, like they still are, right? We're not, they weren't perfect before. They're not great now. They're getting better, but you can never accept the first answer you get either, because everybody is confused about this, that, and the other. So just one piece of advice is, if you are traveling and you ask a question, for example, where might my bag be? I don't know, like something simple, or ask again and again and again, because you'll get different answers every one you ask. And you want to like, you kind of have to round it up in a different way than in the past, because there's so much information overload and there's so much change
Mhm.
that what one person tells you may not be accurate. It's just weird. You have to, and I mention that because it can create some lack of confidence with people that they don't know what's going on. And I would just say, it's not you.
Right.
There's just a lot of change happening.
Right. The ability to really lean in and trust your intuition. And that if you're feeling like what you're hearing is maybe not the definitive truth, you have to do like a little truth shuffling and listen to yourself and try to find the way, which is another thing that makes travel so empowering, is that like really listening to yourself and trusting. Like that is just what you have to rely upon, especially as a solo traveler.
Yeah, and there's a bit of a related topic to that, Christine, which I call ground truthing, which is, even there's been a lot of fear created too around certain destinations and places. And I think people are still afraid, some of us, to perhaps travel at all. And because it's scary, like you can lose your luggage, or, delays or cancellations and this kind of thing. And, you know, in the last few weeks, I spent 4 months in Mexico. I just came back from Medellin in Colombia. Um, and, you know, been in Africa. Like, we have to go find out for ourselves what is happening in these places and not be afraid from a headline or something that we read. We have to ask other women. And again, this is the power of community. Um, Ask, you know, have you been there? How was it? You know, Medellin for me in Colombia was a place I never thought I would feel comfortable after everything I've heard and grown up with. It is the most beautiful, friendly place. I can't wait to go back, and I'm going to be writing about it. But total shift in my perception, and I would not have known that had I not gone there myself and found out for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, again, I think that's that other power of travel is the rewriting the narratives and the
Yeah.
understanding that we have of destinations. I mean, it's really, that's one of my favorite things when I travel and I get to see that like just dumped out. And then you're like, oh, here's the way that it really is. And then moving forward, like the next time you read something about Colombia, you are going to read it through a filter of the experience that you've had there.
Yeah,
And
and the same
so
with Mexico, right? Because I hear Mexico not safe for women. I'm like, you're maybe going to the wrong places. But I mean, there's many places in Mexico that are lovely and safe, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I would love to talk about the JourneyWoman Award. I think that's another a part of the work that you guys are doing that is so important to begin to honor other women in the tourism industry. It's where we almost met. We were sitting at the same table, and I was too nervous to like. I was like, "Oh wait, I think that was Carolyn Ray." Darn it. um, but yeah, so this year at WITS, you were able to deliver an award to Anna Pollock for her work in regenerative thinking and sustainable travel, and also just really showing how women can contribute to positive change. I would love to hear more, a little bit more about how that award came to be and why that's so important right now.
Sure. Well, and Anna was our second winner. The first winner last year was Alessandra Alonso at Women in Travel, CIC out of the UK, also an incredible woman. The award came to be because Beth Santos and I at Wonderful were talking about Evelyn Hannon, and she had this Lifetime Achievement Award, which is what it was called previously. And I approached her and I said, would you consider Evelyn as a candidate for this? And she said, oh, I'm going to one up you. I would like to name the award after Evelyn and give it out in her honor. And so that's what the JourneyWoman Award is. So it's for lifetime achievement for a woman in the travel industry. And so we go through a whole process of nominations and reviewing those nominations. And this year, there were a few of us that did that, including Alessandra, who participated in the selection. And I was so thrilled that Anna was nominated and won this. And I actually spoke to her the morning that this was given out, and I realized she wasn't aware that she had won it. So I had to dial back my congratulations a little bit. But I've now spoken to her many times, and you know, she has spent the last 50 years of her career you know, advocating for a change in thinking around regenerative tourism. And it's funny, I see her now quoted on all these web, like Transformational Travel has her quote on, and I'm like, wow, she really is amazing. And what's even more amazing is she told me that, you know, I think she had decided to kind of dial it back too. Like, she's 73 and she thought, oh, I'm gonna, you know, my voice, you know, I'm gonna step back a little bit. And when she won this award, she decided to step it up.
Mhm.
So now she's doing all kinds of amazing things and she's just out there. So I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy that, you know, that this all came together in such a beautiful way, but mostly I'm happy for her and for her being acknowledged for her contributions to travel and tourism, and her wonderful perspective on everything. I mean, I could talk to her all day.
Yeah.
I hope to meet her in London in a few weeks and can't wait.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's such an example of the the way that we need to embrace the knowledge of the women that have gone before us. Because like you said, if she was starting to feel like, well, now's the time that I should probably sit down and stop carrying this torch that I've been carrying for 50 years. And it really is the time that she's getting the stage and finally getting the acknowledgement for all of the work that she has done. And I think it's such a great example for really valuing that wisdom, and also just the space that she's been in. It's taken so long for people to appreciate the message and the work. I mean,
Yeah.
I have been working in the area of sustainable travel for 20 years. And I know, like, at the beginning of my career, it was kind of like, oh, you're one of those people. How annoying. Go sit over there. And
Yeah.
now it's finally like, okay, we are ready. We're ready for this message. And like, no, there's no better person than someone who's been deeply living this for so long in the industry to be sharing it.
Well, and practically created the term. I mean, this whole thing exists because of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's a message to all of us is don't dial it back, dial it up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been amazing. I appreciate this so much. Before we go, I just wanted to share, for people that are looking for travel. I know that you have created a women's travel directory. Can you just talk about that really quickly? Because I would love for people to be able to have that
Sure.
resource.
So coming out of the pandemic, one of the things that I want to do as an entrepreneur is support other entrepreneurs. So we've created a women's travel directory on our website that lists women-friendly tours, retreats, accommodations, and guides. And I believe it is the only one of its kind in the world, where you can search by destination. So if you're a woman looking to travel in a group, for example, what better way to do that than by supporting another woman entrepreneur? And we also have reviews and all kinds of systems to help improve not just the way you search, but also the companies that are in our directory want to improve and want the feedback. So we look at safety and reputation and cost, and these are all the criteria that we're looking at these companies with, and the ones that achieve our standards, we call them JourneyWoman verified. So they're ones that are going above and beyond to serve women that have been in business for a long time, that are credible, that have safety procedures in place and things like that. So this is, group tours are often a really good way for a woman who hasn't traveled solo to kind of take that first step.
Mhm.
And then I'm hoping to build up the retreat, and we offer free listings to guides as well, which can be recommended by women. So I'm trying to really create this whole resource for women, and everything's free, right? So it's just, the more people participate in this, the more it will grow. And I encourage anyone who's running a women-friendly tour to join our directory and also connect with other businesses, because that's a part of this. Is we have a private Facebook group, we have monthly tour operator calls that have been going on for almost 3 years now, where we're trying to, we're all lifting each other up. And that's a sub community at JourneyWoman that didn't exist before at all, that is now 200 tour operators that is all helping each other recover from the pandemic. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Such a great resource. When I saw that, I was so excited because, as it being a female traveler, that is something I've looked for. And I brought my business, Lotus Sojourns, to a travel show, and, they had all these boxes that you could check of, are you a cruise company? Are you safari? Are you this? And I reached out to the director and I'm like, how come you don't have, a women's travel category? Well, do people want that? I'm like, yeah, a lot of people do. 50% of people do. 80% of people making travel decisions actually would like that. And they're like, well, you're in a corner kind of next to another woman travel thing, which we were by Wonderful by Beth Santos. And I was like, yeah, she's a pretty big women travel thing. I was like, trying not to get on my soapbox, but I said, you really should have at least a box to check, because I guarantee you there are women travelers here who would love to know that there is travel being created intentionally for them. And that would be a great way for them to be able to find who they can connect with. So
Absolutely.
I am so excited that there is a resource like this out here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love it. It's amazing. Amazing.
Well, as we end, I just have my rapid fire questions, and
Oh, okay.
and then we'll be done. So I'm so excited. This was such a great conversation to share with you today.
You made me cry too, don't forget.
I know. Well, here's the thing. I listen to the podcasts, and I actually just listened to the first episode of this season today, and I was crying like 3 times. So I might not be crying right now, but when I listen back, I'll be with you in that moment. So I appreciate.
Oh, well, listen, and the JourneyWoman readers know that I tend to do this a lot. Like whenever I talk about Evelyn and I mean, you saw it when I gave out the award, like it's so emotional for me. This is not just about, this is like, the biggest honor of my life. And so it's not just about a business or a website. This is like, oh my God, like it really, really matters to me.
Yeah, I love that so much. I mean, I get that feeling, and I think that's what really resonated with me when we did meet. It's just like, to get to wear your soul on your sleeve in work is such the greatest gift, and I wish that every person would have that opportunity. Yeah. Okay, so what are you reading right now?
Oh, well, I have it right here. I'm reading a book by Eliza Reid. She was the First Lady of Iceland. She's Canadian. And it's all talking about gender equality in Iceland. So that's what I'm reading at this very moment, actually. Started it today.
Excellent. That sounds like a great book. What is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
I always have a headlamp.
Me too, because you really never know when you need one.
Yeah, and I also have a doorstop. So, and people always say, "Why do you need a doorstop if you're staying in a hotel?" Well, I'll tell you, not all hotels have the safety bar, and I just do it now as a matter. Sometimes I do it in my own apartment because I just want that extra sense of safety. So, yeah, those are the two things.
When I was referring to the packing list that I told you at the beginning of this conversation, that was the thing that I saw on there that I had kind of forgotten about, that's such a valuable thing. And I think I actually even had it in my old travel kit. And I was like, why do I need a doorstop? Aha, I remember this was why.
You never know. You just never know.
Yeah. So the term to sojourn to me means to travel somewhere. Oh.
Sorry, my viruses are attacking my computer, but never mind.
Oh no. That is not something that we need to have happening right now. I'm so sorry. So to sojourn means to me to travel somewhere as if you live there, to be a guest for a short while. Where is one place? I know you said you just returned from Mexico, but where would you love to sojourn?
I am planning to spend the winter in Spain in a small village. And so that will be my next place. And I like to live places a long time. So I'm looking to live there for 3 or 4 months, as long as, visa rules will allow. So yeah, northern Spain outside of Barcelona.
Excellent. What is something that you eat that immediately connects you to a place you've been?
Oh, wow, so much. I think I would say avocados at the moment, because in Mexico, in Merida, they had these massive avocados you could buy at the market for like 10 pesos, that were the best avocados I've ever had. So I really miss those. It's not the same.
Yeah, it
yeah.
is not the same. That's for sure. Who was the person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
Ooh. That is a great question. I don't think I had any role models growing up that actually encouraged me to travel. My family was very fearful of the world. So it was actually a big, shift for me to travel at all. But I think I would say my Nana, because she was a teacher and she encouraged me to read. And so I am a bookworm through and through. And I think every time I would come visit her in Toronto, I grew up in Florida, and every time I would come visit her in Toronto, she would have a new book for me. about some part of the world. So she wasn't necessarily, encouraging me to travel, but she was encouraging me to learn and have a different perspective. And I'm so grateful for that.
Mm. I just did a rapid fire questioning on myself when I just did the intro to the season to see what my answers were, because I hadn't really thought about it. And I realized that books were really the inspiration for my traveling as well, that I didn't really have it modeled for me, but it was that curiosity of the world that was sparked through books that made me just kind of want to get out there and really see if it was what it was in these books. So yeah.
Yeah, even books like The Paris Wife, and I went on a whole Hemingway all over the world now. I've been everywhere Hemingway lived, and just because I read Paul McLean's book, The Paris Wife, and so yeah, books can just be amazing sources of inspiration.
Yeah. If you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, alive or past, who would it be?
Oh, well, I'll try not to cry again. I would love to travel with Evelyn.
Hmm. Yeah.
And she loved Asia. So, and that's a place I haven't spent a lot of time in. So I wish she was still here. We could do that.
Yeah. I hope that you'll have the
Yeah.
opportunity to do
I don't
that.
want to end on another tearful note though. So
I know. I have one more question for you, so we'll come back.
Oh my God,
Um,
I'm emotional today.
that's all right. Who is one woman in the travel industry you admire and would love to recognize in this space?
Well, I've already talked about Anna, and how incredible I think she is. I think the other woman I've met this year that has really blown me away is Tracy Breeden from Match. And she came from, she was a police officer. She went to Uber. She set up all of their safety protocols. She then went to Match and is improving things there at Match and making it safe for women to connect online. And she's also our lead sponsor of our Women's Travel Wisdom Retreat that's happening in a month. And, every time I talk to her, I'm just so inspired by her view on the world and, the way that she talks about women's rights and human rights and how you can't be fully safe and fully have our rights as women without, looking at all the things that are happening in the world and connecting those together. So I'm just in awe of her. I've met her once, and I can't wait to meet her again in a month. And she's going to speak about this more at our event. But man, she is not only kick-ass, but she's really just got like a huge heart. And I'm so honored that she's supporting my efforts, and look what she's done for the world, like with Uber, like in particular. There's all kinds of safety mechanisms built into Uber apps that she did.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that too. I think it's so great to learn about, especially something like that, where we wouldn't know where those features, I saw them arise right onto the app, but hadn't really thought about how or who or why they are there. And so it's so great to get to learn about other women that are creating impactful work in this area. I really appreciate your time today, Carolyn. Like, this has been a real treat. I've been waiting for this conversation. And so I'm so glad that we got to spend the time together. And I hope that my listeners really got to understand, the passion that we see for community and creating spaces for women, and really feel the like authentic love that we have for this space.
yeah, well, thank you. And I hope they'll sign up for our newsletters and be an active part, right? We need everyone to be active and
Yeah.
participate in all these discussions. So thank you. Thank you for giving me space and for inviting me to come on this. I'm so honored.
Yeah, thank you. And for those of you listening, just make sure you check the show notes. You can find where you can sign up for the newsletter that Carolyn mentioned, and learn about the retreats and all the other activities and ways you can be a part of JourneyWoman community. So thank you.
Thank you.